Hey, welcome to the pre-release demo of the original Doom. So this was released in October 1993, and it was handed out to members of the press so that they could get to experience Doom before the final release. What's interesting about this version, however, is there's a lot of differences. You'll be looking at the HUD straight away and you'll notice things are just different. Also, this lift here is slow lift, which I do not like at all. So I wanted to take a look at this because it is fascinating to me, and because we've taken a look at the two other betas, it just kind of made sense. So you can see that we're in E1M2 here, and you can see that the level is pretty much finally formed here. So what is that? That is a skull chest, goodness me. So there's actually items in this that did not make it into the final version of the game. You can also see that the level layouts are somewhat different in places, so instead of having stairs here, we actually have another slow lift. The obsession with slow lifts continues. You'll also notice that the items, when picked up, they actually register in the HUD at the bottom. So these items were actually described in the Doom Bible. So these were items that you were meant to pick up and they were supposed to add to your score. Look at that skull staff there. But the idea was you were supposed to get a score like in Wolfenstein, and picking up these items was supposed to add to that score. Now obviously we know that that did not make it to the final version of this game, but it is interesting that even this close to release, you know, this was still being influenced into the game. And you can see that the outdoor area here is somewhat different. It's actually kind of more similar to the PS1 version of this level. The skybox as well does not have the iconic sort of mountains. It has a different set of mountains, which, I mean, it gives off a different vibe. It makes this all feel very dark and very gloomy when you go outside. But it's just crazy seeing all these different items as you're wandering around here. And as far as I'm aware, they didn't actually... Oh, the red key didn't disappear when we picked it up. Interesting. But it is interesting that these items are in here. And as mentioned, they were featured in the Doom Bible. So the idea, I assume, was that these were supposed to play a big part in the game. And obviously, because they kind of ejected a lot of the story elements, they went with it before the final release. You'll also notice the imps fire different projectiles. Now, from what I can tell, they end up being used in Doom 2 with the arachnotrons, so they get recolored to green. I also think they show up in Heretic as well. I'm pretty sure that there's enemies in Heretic that use a very similar projectile to that. So they do show up, but just not in Doom. But you can see that from the last beta, we actually kind of get the maze here that we finally see in the final release, because in the alpha releases that we played previously, this was just kind of a big jumbled up mess. But yeah, it's interesting that it shows the item number as well. Like I'm not sure I like that. I don't know why they would show you that, because that could have easily just gone onto the map screen. You can see they haven't added in the secrets there with the backpack, so I'm just kind of rubbing myself up against the wall, hoping that it'll open up. My guess is that when they sort of started playing this and realised how fast and furious the gameplay was, they didn't really feel the need to have items in there that would just slow it all down. Take you out of here. There you go. There you go. There's also different item placements. You'll notice that there are items like the shotgun shells there and the armor right next to each other, which are not in the final release. Secret hasn't been implemented there yet. But you can see that this close to release, they had actually finally gotten this level down to what effectively will become the final level. Obviously there are changes still to be made, but the chainsaw is still here. Although you can notice if you look to the blade there, it isn't actually spinning, it's actually just a still sprite, so they hadn't quite finished the look of the chainsaw. I like also how the shotgun shell box there was kind of sinking into the floor and didn't quite have the polished look that you'd expect. And you'll also notice that there's another slow lift here. So I have to say, these slow lifts implemented in this level really slow things down. They really don't do any favours to the gameplay speed. So I can totally understand why these don't make it into the final design for this level, because this level's pretty fast and furious. You can whiz through this level in about a minute if you know what you're doing at retail. But here, it's like, no, you have to wait for these slow-ass lifts. And I can totally understand why they got rid of these before final release. You'll also see that this is a difference again. So in the alpha version, there was a room here in the center, and it kind of was all level. You didn't actually go down a lift here. But there you have to go through a toxic maze, which I'm not a fan of, because I can imagine that a few new players would wander into that area and they'd just end up kind of getting hurt by that toxic. So you can see that the pit here with all the enemies is still here. And again, it's another slow lift. So they really had a thing for slow lifts, I have to say that. So heading towards the exit here. And we're going to take down all of this. But yeah, this is E1M2. Is this a slow lift as well? It's a slow lift. Of course, the level ends on a slow lift. But honestly, like, this is kind of fun, and that's what the stat screen looks like at this point in development. You even get a score bonus at the bottom, which crazy. But you can see that the level layout is the same. So now we're going to jump into E3M5 here, and this time around I'm actually going to use the all weapons cheat, because I do want to show off all the weapons in this. So you can see that the weapons here are all pretty similar to like what you'd see in the final release. The chainsaw, as I mentioned earlier on, does not have the rotating blade. The pistol looks the same, the shotgun looks the same, the chain gun looks like it's had a weird haircut, and it fires a slightly different sprite, which I am not a fan of. So the rocket launcher, it's weird because the gun has a bit more recoil on it as you're shooting, and it's weird. It looks like it's squeezing on itself a bit more. I don't like it. And then we get the plasma rifle here. So I remember reading an interview where Romero described the plasma rifle as looking like Christmas, and the BFG kind of looking like Christmas when you shoot it. And yeah, it just vomits green and red out like this. So it's clear that they decided this was not what they wanted this weapon to end up being. So let's see how effective this is in actual combat. So you can see it is still quite effective in a combat situation. It's just not as good as the final BFG, because the BFG uses a tracer. Also, you'll notice in this, the cacodemons do not go up and down. So that hadn't actually been implemented yet, which means that the cacodemons stay on the same sort of plane, which is why when they shoot the fireballs, it kind of comes out from the chin rather than the mouth. So we're going to use the weird chain gun against the weird cacodemon here. You'll also notice next to Doomguy's head there's a free, so that's for lives. So they did actually have a life system implemented in this game, which is absolutely comical to me. You'll see that at the end of this room they haven't completely fixed this one yet because there's some leakage going on in the sectors, so you can kind of get a weird texture. Ooh, hello. I don't think we can kill that one. I think it's... Oh wait, we can, but we have to use the chainsaw. That's fine. But you can see you get a weird sort of texture bleed there. So you're looking through, and the light kind of doesn't look correct. So obviously they fixed that before the final retail release. So what's also interesting is that this part is actually broken, so the sector here hasn't been finished correctly, so it doesn't actually lower, which means we can't actually go into that sector without using a no-clip cheat. So obviously, you know, it's a bit of a shame, but you know, this is very much an early release, so we can't really be that upset. This secret is still here though, so we can have a look down and see what's inside there, and you can see that it's pretty much the same room. I think they just changed the textures in there a tiny bit for the final release, so at least we get to kind of have a look in there. Hello? So you can see they've implemented these doors so you can't actually go through, much like in the final release. And again, this is broken because they clearly hadn't, you know, fine-tuned these levels yet, so again, we can't really go into there. So this actually teleports us here rather than to the center, which is interesting. Not quite sure what that eye is. It looks like a little eyeball sort of looking side to side there. Ah, it's the invulnerability. Nice. So here we get to see the... Oh my god, so the invulnerability actually doesn't help us. That's quite terrifying. So you can see here the original Lost Soul design. And it's funny because these have actually enjoyed something of a renaissance in recent years, because a few WoD designers, in particular some of like the bigger WoDs, have kind of been bringing these back as enemies. And I'm going to be honest with you, they're slightly more terrifying in this form, because they not only float around like that, they can also hit you from a distance, which is not nice, because as you can see here, they are literally sort of just sapping our health from a distance, which kind of makes them a bit overpowered. Like the Lost Souls that we know and hate, you have to kind of be next to them for them to actually do any damage. But let's have a look in the center part here. I'm going to grab some health. Oh, hello. But yes, interestingly, that beta Lost Soul design has been turning up in quite a few WoDs as a new enemy type, which I'm all for, because it is a cool enemy type. It's just very aggressive. Does this actually open anything up? No, it does not. So they clearly haven't implemented the teleportation system here. Personally, I think it makes the level better, but you know, each to their own. Will this let us through? It does. So it teleports us here. Okay, you can see the carcasses of the Lost Souls just kind of awkwardly float in mid-air there. So this room is slightly different as well. You'll also notice that we can't actually shoot onto the plane lower than us here. So what basically ends up happening, we have to sort of be level with the enemies that are sort of teleporting in here. So this would have made the final game a lot worse, in my opinion, if you weren't able to actually hit enemies, because Doom doesn't let you look up and down in its base game, so you have to kind of rely on the game kind of hitting enemies above and below you. It is interesting that they put steps here. Like, they felt the need to make this room a bit more grander by throwing steps in here. Although you can see over here, they've not quite decided what texture this is going to be yet. There is a bunch of ammo in here, which is nice. You can see that the ammo box and the rocket box are the same, but the cell ammo is slightly different as well. I don't think we can get out of here, so I think that this is going to end up being a nice place to end this level. But yeah, this was an interesting glance at this early form of E3M5. And here we are in E2M2. Now, we have seen this in the previous alphas. This actually goes back quite far. But it's interesting that they've moved this door around to the start here. I don't know if they've done this because they felt that players might miss it if it's kind of where it was originally. I don't know. It does, I suspect as well, because players may be tempted to go into that door and there's nothing they can actually get in there at this point in the level. So they might be disappointed when they kind of open the door and there's just a yellow door that they can't actually do anything with. So maybe they just decided like to make it less prominent at the start of the level. Do apologise for my terrible aiming, by the way. DOS controls, I have not played with keyboard only in years, so but what's interesting is that when we came here last time, this was very much a sort of tech base area, and now it's kind of been turned into this marble temple. So it's clear that this level was completely repackaged and repurposed to fit the needs of the episode that it was being placed into. So we can go into the blue door here. We're not going to wander up too far that way because we'll end up going round there anyway. But if we head down this way, this is where all of our soldier friends were when we started the last alpha level version of this one. And this doorway was not here, so it means that you can come into here, and this is how it is in the final release of this game. And they've also added in these steps here, which is pretty fun. I am using the chain gun here because I just want you to appreciate just how odd this looks. How just like a very small change in its design completely kind of changes the feel of the weapon. But you can see here, this other entrance is indeed here, so there is a fair amount to explore in this one, and they have kind of moved to the point now where the level is near enough in its final form. Oh, who's attacking me? Something just hit me and I'm not quite sure what it was. Oh, it was you. Hello. But yes, let's just take a quick nosy through this direction because obviously, you know, when we came here last time, this was all here, but you couldn't actually get up top here because the boxes to let you walk up here hadn't been put in. We should call this the Santa rifle. So to kill all these enemies here, you can see on the side there, they haven't quite textured up the door there. So hopefully they fix that by the final retail release. So this has been implemented fully. When we came in here last time, there was 5 pillars, but they've dropped it down to the 3 you'd see in the final game here. And now you get a proper look at the imps here. And you can see the lost souls here. I'm going to let you have a proper look at them, because in the last level we kind of went using invulnerability and it was kind of hard to see them. But you can see, look, they sort of like are able to chew you from a distance. So they're basically like shotgunners, but like a bit more nasty in my opinion, because they have the same kind of hit scan weapon going on, which not a fan of, not gonna lie. So we'll head into the next part of this level here. Hello. Gonna wander across here. So they finally put these steps in, which is cool. I think the textures here are a bit different to what you'd see in the final game. I think that this gets a slight rework. But you can see the plasma rifle is as powerful as it is in the final release of this game, because it is taking down all these enemies pretty nicely here. So let's see if we can grab this yellow key. Oh, they've not implemented the thing yet where like it actually changes the floor, so you still get hurt. Also note, when you die, you don't properly die, your weapon just kind of tucks in slightly. So we'll just finish off exploring this level, because obviously we died there. But basically they haven't implemented the thing where the texture changes, so you don't get hurt anymore on hurt floors when they change. So for those who are kind of curious about trying this out, it isn't actually that difficult to get hold of these WADs. I think they were officially sanctioned for release a few years back, so they are out on the internet. I think they're even on the id WAD file, so I think that they are kind of safe to get your hands on. I think that they are definitely worth experiencing if you want to just get a first-hand look at how Doom could have been, because in an alternate universe this is what Doom would have been, and it's pretty much the same game we get in the final release. It's just a bit slower paced here. So you can see they've implemented the exit, but they haven't fixed the textures yet. They've also put the crushers in, which, you know, boo. And you can see here, you know, we're getting crushed. The crushers don't actually work properly because they don't push you down to the ground yet. So you kind of get this Hall of Mirrors effect as you're wandering through here. Really? Really? Well, I said I'd show you this warts and all, so let's show you this warts and all indeed. I am going to jump ahead ever so slightly here because I want to show this room off here. So in this room, this is where you get the chainsaw on this level, and you have to fight all the lost souls. But obviously, because these are the old lost souls, the beta lost souls, you end up feeling like this is a bit more punishing. I mean, just look. So you're getting a good look at the lost souls here. So obviously, as we know, these didn't make it into the final version of Doom, but they do look really cool. I have to say, I'm not sure if I prefer these or the final release version of the lost souls, because honestly, they are pretty cool to look at. And if it wasn't for the hit scan, you know, weapons that they have, I'd probably be more happy to sort of have them in the final game as like a variant of Lost Souls. See, I'm just trying to get ahead here. Okay. The problem is these don't go all the way to the roof, so you only have like a small window to actually get through. And because there's an enemy there, it actually doesn't crush them, it just kind of pushes down like they're stood there. But you can see this is where you get the blue key in the final release, and it is very much here. But yeah, this is E2M2, and honestly speaking, I don't think we can actually get in that door. I don't think they've actually implemented that as a key door yet. So instead you actually have to hit the switch there, which is a bit more laborious. It's not as free-flowing as it is in the final version. Because obviously, you know, in the final version you just grab the blue key and you can go and get the red key, which is kind of what you want when you get the blue key. The blue key is only really there to kind of stop you from hitting that switch and getting the red key. So last time we came to this part, it was literally just a bunch of brown rooms. None of this texturing was here. And I just want to kind of see if this secret has been fully implemented. It has, although I think there's more enemies in the final retail release. There's also some enemies in here, I suspect. So let's see if there's this secret's still here. Yes, it is. It is truly fascinating getting to see what Doom could have been, because you have to remember this is only like 1 or 2 months out from full-on retail release. So even at this late stage in the game, there were a lot of things that get changed, get altered, get moved around. Now obviously, because of the way game development works, this was probably more accurately reflective of how the game was looking towards the end of the summer in 1993, because they would have polished this up for release, but obviously they would have still been working on the final build of the game separately. So I don't know if this is reflective of what it looked like at the start of October 93 when this kind of went out to the press. And if you want to try this, it isn't actually that difficult to get your hands on this, so I do recommend it. You will need to patch it so that your computer kind of looks like it's set before October 31st, I think it is, because they actually have a timer on this that sort of self-destructs it and stops it from working. Ah, that doesn't turn the screen green. That is weird. What's also interesting is there's another exit door over there, so it's kind of implying that these levels are all linked together, which we only see a few times in the final release. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to talk about with the pre-release version of Doom here. So this kind of comes after the alphas. It's basically a final beta before the pre-release version of Doom, which I will be playing in the near future because there are quite a few changes in that version as well. But honestly, like, this is fascinating to me, and I really do enjoy looking at these old builds of Doom, because the game we got in the end is, even at this point, quite different from the one that we see here. There's a lot of systems that were kind of taken out. You don't get a scoring system in the final game, you don't get to pick up any of those mythical items. It's a lot sharper and straighter to the point than this build, because even at this point they were still kind of toying with those mythical elements that don't really fit into what the final version of Doom would end up being. But I'd love to hear what you guys think of this. Do you like this? Do you hate this? Do you wish that final Doom had been more like this? And what do you think of the level alterations? Do you think that the slow elevators add, mood or ambience to the E1M2? Or like me, do you think that they're just kind of a waste of time? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching.